So, calling to order Historic Landmarks Commission, March 13th, 2024. Let's start with a roll call.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call. Chair Grumbine.
Present?
Vice Chair House.
I am here.
Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Dordan will be joining us shortly. Commissioner Drury.
Here.
Commissioner Ensberg.
Here.
Commissioner Lindvik.
Present.
Commissioner McClure.
Yes.
And Commissioner Uli is absent. We have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, let's open with go to public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within our jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for a public discussion. So is anyone from the public wishing to talk about something else besides what's on the agenda? Okay, not seeing any.
All right. Thank you, Chair Grumbine. We also do not have any virtual participants at this time, and we didn't receive any written correspondence, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
Okay, great. All right, on to item B, approval of the minutes of Historic Landmarks Commission meeting February 14th, 2024.
So moved. Second.
All right, motion by Drury, second by Vice Chair House. Under discussion, do we have any edits? Edits, changes, anything? The minutes?
Yes,
Chair Ensberg.
Chair Grumbine, thank you. I did, well, first I always like to thank, our staff for the great work. These minutes are not easy, so I really want to express gratitude for doing this for us. So on the State Street Master Plan process, I had a number of things. And, I mean, this is such an important topic. I just really feel like we need to be sure that we get it as accurate as possible. So one thing, I'll just kind of go in order of what I had. One was that we did talk about putting these in a order of priority, but we didn't really get to it at that meeting. But we did talk about it. So I don't know how to address that, other than to maybe include it in the minutes. Because we talked about, like, for example, open, number 8, open all State Street Advisory Committee meetings with a reminder that State Street is in EPV. And we were saying, well, that should be kind of like top of the list, number 1. And then we had also had a number of other things that we thought they should be more prioritized. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I recall the discussion, but I'm trying to think if we ever did that, if we ever prioritized them. So I think part of the problem is with the minutes, I think we can't prioritize them at this point in terms of that without it being an actual real discussion and then, yeah. So I think that we, maybe that if that was discussed as part of it, maybe they can look at it, look back at it and see if we can add a comment saying that those comments or these comments that we just discussed will need to be prioritized, as a future point. I don't know if there is language in there that would imply that.
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair. I think the best course would be maybe for the next discussion, you could make that as part of the discussion as creating a priority if you so choose, but because that didn't happen at the last hearing.
Yeah,
I think we just
putting
have
in the
to-
minutes is okay. Okay, so that's just,
So we can-
as we agendize, and maybe that'll be part of the next discussion as well, or in terms of future agenda items, we can discuss that, and let's make sure to put that into it if we so choose. So, as we agendize the next item, next time.
But we can add that statement.
We can't add it to the.
No, because we did say that. We did say that at the meeting, that we felt that these items should be prioritized in terms of, a logical order. That was stated in the.
Yeah, but the only problem is the minutes are a summary of all the points that we made, and I thought we had actually gone through and summarized them, or was it more of a running stream of consciousness that got pulled into this list?
I don't believe there was.
A formal statement of all the things?
And a formal summary. I believe the secretary captured the comments as the
Okay.
discussion was going.
So then I would say that the thing would be to request, and whether we approve these minutes now or not, but to request that it might be part of the approval of the minutes, that the secretary look to see if there's the language that would be able to warrant adding a piece here from the summary of the minutes that notes that we would like to be prioritizing this list.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
we're asking the State Street Advisory Committee to change its objectives. And I don't know that we have the authority to implement that. We can certainly ask for it, and the State Street Advisory Committee staff is aware of our concerns. But we can't tell them to change their, the basic objectives of the State Street Advisory Committee.
I don't think that's what Commissioner.
That's
I
not
don't
what
know what Commissioner Answer is saying. She's saying our recommendations, prioritizing those, so that we say the most important recommendations we have are these, the secondary ones are these, or whatever. Like we basically, I think that was part of the discussion, was trying to figure out what the most important things were to us. And that's not a requirement to SSAC. That's these are what's the most important that we think are most fundamental, and these are other ones as well. It seems like we didn't
Well,
talk
I'm
about
not
it.
sure that was, I'm not sure that was Enberg's request.
She's
To
here,
be,
so we can
to
ask.
be, yeah, thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioner Linda. What I am saying, and I agree, I think this does reflect the stream of consciousness that we spoke at the last meeting. That is what I think this is. One of the comments that didn't get captured, which was, I think, at the very end, was that we would like to order these in a more logical order. We just kind of had our discussion, we talked about them. Okay, well, we're trying to get clear, so
Yeah,
that's
so
what we're doing.
how does this sound? The commission would like to create a prioritized list of comments. Of these
Would
comments,
prioritize the comments.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that is, and then I think we are having, we are going to be discussing this after the next SSAC meeting, which is next Monday, I believe. So at that time, maybe that's when we can do this.
And I think that's going to be, that's where it will play into future agenda items.
Yeah,
at
right,
D.
okay. Okay,
So
well, the
let's-
only other, oh, excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, no, that I'm just saying, let's cover it on D.
Okay. The only other thing then, I had some more kind of mincemeat here, but I'll just leave that. And then, but I did want to ask that the documents that were provided by Commissioner Dordan and me be included. I know that they're in the record, but that they were part of this discussion, and those were documents that we both referred to as part of the discussion. So I think it's important that those be in this part of the minutes.
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair, through the chair to Commissioner Ensberg. The comments are included in this staff memo, which is linked to the minutes. So there is a link to all of those comments.
Right. Is it, thank you. Is it possible,
I don't think it needs to be said in the minutes. It's linked to the minutes.
Yes,
Okay.
it's not our standard minutes procedure to include that as part of the
Okay.
minutes.
Unless it was a specifically
Yes,
thing
but the
that-
link to the
yeah.
staff memo will provide access to those
Okay.
reference minutes.
all right,
Okay.
if all agree. Okay, and then also on page 5, under, this was the Providence School, 531 East Ortega Street. Mr. Cornell's name is spelled B-R-I-A-N, not B-R-Y-A-N. And then I wanted to, under number 6. Okay, I don't have a further comment there. I'll just leave that. Under the number 9, so some commissioners feel that the glass box, it says, study the administration glass box element to add more expression on the corners. And then it says, some commissioners feel that the glass box element is not successful. I think that's true, but I think it was also that at least one commissioner felt the glass box was fine as is, without the additional corner details.
Yeah, I think that's implied by some. And-
Maybe it was some, but I know it was at least one.
yeah.
Pardon
So-
the interruption,
Yeah.
Chair Grumbine. This portion of the motion was also copied from the previous motion. So when you guys were making this motion, you only made a couple of points, and then you said to copy it from the previous minutes. So those are from that record, just
Okay.
to clarify.
Yeah, because they didn't address.
So
those, right?
they should have transferred over the same.
Yeah.
So I would add that then.
Well,
These
Yeah.
minutes, these comments that have been copied over have already been ratified by the commission because they're from a previous concept review. So what Mariah is saying is, or Ms. Johnson is saying, is that we can't make changes to those comments because they've already been ratified by the commission.
if we were to
Isn't-
make changes to those particular comments, we would have had to make them at the previous time when we
Okay.
voted on.
All right, well, I don't mean to be overly picky, but, so I guess we can't do anything about that.
We don't think you're being overly picky.
Okay.
That's your job. for
Okay,
that.
and then, okay, so then finally, the last one is the project on Equestrian Avenue. And I would like to suggest on number 2 that we say, "The commission thanks the applicant for their work and efforts in providing good information to the neighbors regarding the project and modifying the design," and I wanted to add this, "by simplifying the colors and other decorative elements and moving the tower further to the back to satisfy the neighbors immediately to the west."
To attempt to satisfy.
I don't think that's what I said
To attempt.
when I made the motion.
Well, we had a lot of discussion about it, and I think it's really important because this applicant went to great lengths to redesign the project based on what we had put in our minutes prior to that. So I just wanted to really emphasize that and to acknowledge in a little bit stronger way the appreciation, that the effort that they went to and the work that they did.
Pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair. We can I'll capture this for now, and then the secretary can go back and check the recording and see if this was actually included. But if it wasn't included in the motion, we can't add it now.
No, I understand.
So that's just as a kind of note for motion making in general. That's why it's important to let the chair go through, summarize all of the comments, and then when he opens it up for discussion, if you feel additional information should be added, that's your time to do it. Because if it's not included and captured in the motion at that time, we can't add it retroactively.
No, I understand.
So yeah, so the edit or the edits to the minutes at this point are like. The intention is to capture to correct very minor errors or wording changes, but not to add substantive text to a motion.
And thank you for that, and I realize that, and I just know that the minutes oftentimes are a simplification of a very, very extensive discussion. So we don't know what the actual extensiveness of the discussion is until we get the minutes. And so this was just, in this case, I felt that it was appropriate to do that.
Okay,
So if you can, you can. If you can't, we'll go with what we can do.
And we can have the secretary go back and consult the
Yeah.
recording, but when the comments are summarized at the end, when the motion is created, that is kind of the act of simplifying a substantive or a larger discussion down into the summarized comments. And so that's,
And so if there is any more,
So if there is more emphasis,
if there is more stuff in there, then if they can capture it, and if they go back and check.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Okay, so there are a couple of, well, at least one major go back and check, and then the other minor adjustments or note. Is there any? Should we just postpone this to be ratified at the next thing, or can we ratify it with those comments of the secretary reviewing and confirming, and especially the last piece?
yes, we can approve the minutes today with the comment that the secretary should confirm the edits were captured in the recording.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. And Chair Grumbine, I think another thing I want to pay more attention to myself is that if we do put off ratifying minutes for any reason, that we be sure that we aren't causing anyone delay if they're, if they're finaled.
Yeah, that's a
Because
good
the
question.
ratification is when, that would be when they're,
So for the, actually, for, as a point of clarification, when the full commission minutes are ratified, because, again, that's why we're limited to just very minor edits, because the motion is final at the point that it's made. These are just to kind of correct small errors. So this appeal period does start for full commission items, the date that the motion is made. For consent, the appeal period starts when it's ratified by the full commission, because
Okay.
that's kind of the opportunity to workshop those comments a little more, and that's the full
And
commission
potentially
has-
pull it up to
Yeah,
the
they
full
can-
commission.
That motion can be changed, but it's not like the commission could say, oh, we granted project design approval, but now we're changing it to continue subsequently. So
Right.
that would never,
okay.
it wouldn't affect the appeal period. I don't know if I'm explaining that very
Yeah,
well.
Excellent.
no, that makes
but-
sense. So for the full commission, it doesn't affect the appeal period. For consent, it is the thing that actually starts the appeal period. So if you do delay it, then you do delay the appeal
Correct.
period. Okay. All right, good point. Okay, any other edits? Anyone? All right, so we've got a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine.
Oh, sorry, for approval of the minutes with the secretary checking to make sure, with edits, that we did, and with the secretary reviewing to confirm the one item has the correct verbiage. Okay,
And it's
Okay with the
Yes.
seconder.
okay,
Okay with me, too.
all right, great. And the firster.
I can't say anything else because she's sitting right next to me.
Fair enough. Whatever works. All right, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dordian?
Yes.
Commissioner Drury?
Yes?
Commissioner Insberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik?
Yes.
Commissioner Uli?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Vice Chair House?
Yes.
Chair Grumbine?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Let's go to item C, approval of the consent calendar for February 28th and March 13th, 2024.
Motion to approve both. Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Just to staff.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. Item A on the consent calendar from February 28th is 2020 Alameda Padre Serra, which received project design approval and final approval with the condition that the steel post be solid stock and the project compatibility findings. Item B was 102 Natoma Ave, which received project design approval with conditions and findings, including the condition that the railing shall not exceed 36 inches in height. 2, the spacing of pickets can be 4 inches as shown on the plans if desired. Condition that the vertical picket shall resemble the original drawings with the incorporation of square and twisting pickets in an alternating pattern. 3, condition that the shutters shall be reinstalled to match existing. And then the project compatibility analysis findings and minor alteration findings were made. So we can pause here to go through if there are any edits or comments from the consent reviewers, or we can proceed to the consent calendar from today, depending on how you would like to.
All right. We can, well, let's proceed to both. We have a motion for both, so let's, yeah.
All right, so then for the consent calendar from March 13th, item A was 1633 Garden Street, which received project design approval and final approval with project compatibility findings. Item B was 1332 Anacapa Street, which received project design approval and final approval with project compatibility analysis findings. Item C was 1131 State Street, which received project design approval and final approval with project compatibility analysis findings. And then item D was 904 through 906 West Mission Street, which received project design approval with the condition that the applicant shall return with specifications for the back deck, louver door, and round front window, the project compatibility analysis findings, the minor alterations findings, and minor zoning exception findings, approving the trash enclosure in the interior setback, and then the final comment that the colors as presented are acceptable.
All right. Any comments from the consent calendar?
No.
Okay, all good. All right,
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Oh, yeah, sure, under discussion, yeah.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I had a question on 1633 Garden Street, just whether this is a historic resources inventory property. Does the proposed roofing, which is a standing seam metal roof, does it match the existing house? And if
I
it-
can explain to you, this is a detached garage. It has a very low slope, built-up roof that does not match the house. And they could replace with that, or they could do PVC single ply or standing seam metal. None of them would be exactly compatible with the house. The reason that they went with the metal is there's a large tree adjacent, and so if a limb fell, it would not penetrate through the metal like it might through some other roofing materials. So there wasn't any reason to say that it's not acceptable, because it's just as unacceptable as a 90-pound.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And then on the 1131 State Street, the San Marcos building with the parklet. This is an interesting one because we have been talking about,
Pardon my interruption.
Sorry,
Ms.
we can't have a
To the
discussion.
chair, to Commissioner Ensberg. Yes, we don't want to get into a parklet discussion, but I
Okay.
also wanted to clarify that this is not a parklet. This was outdoor dining.
I know,
So,
yes. Well, I guess I did not find the elements that they had used, particularly the black rectangular pots, being compatible, especially on such an important building. So my feeling on it was that it should have been just the railing, and then just like a concrete, since it's a cast, it has the cast stone ornamentation on the building that's a concrete color. That's more appropriate would be a concrete round rolled edge pot instead of this black that they have like pushed right up against the building. So I was a little concerned about that, and I just wanted to bring it up.
I think all I can say about that is that this was reviewed and approved by the Public Works. It's consistent with the outdoor dining guidelines. And they represented that these planters have been used in other locations on State Street, and they all have to be removable, so it can't be something too heavy that's impossible to move. So, there wasn't strong grounds for saying, no, come up with something entirely different. I mean, I wish they didn't have to be there, but it is allowed.
And they were consistent with the black railing and the chain.
Yeah.
I mean, that was,
And they're not a shiny finish, there's a matte finish to it, so.
that was what we were talking about.
Well, this highlights to me
Yeah.
the need for us to
Have
get
others
back
more
into this
standards.
discussion and fix this.
Which we can't have now.
Right, no, I understand. Thank you.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? All right. Let's have a roll call vote to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Drury,
Abstain?
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. We are on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuous withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals to staff.
no announcements from staff at this time.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Uli.
if our legal counsel were here, I'm sure that, her eyebrows would be twitching.
But she's not so quick, before she gets here.
I just want to caution us that we should not get into lengthy discussions about the matters in the minutes or the consent calendar, because it is a violation of the rules. We need to be really careful just to stick to substantive edits.
Okay, thanks for the comments, and we will also just try to keep moving. Okay, so so I think future agenda items is one that we wanted to bring up as per our plan, which was to have an agenda item for HLC to discuss the results of the SSAC with Commissioner Lenvik and HLC members' thoughts and recommendations. And so our plan had been to schedule that for the subsequent or the following, our meeting that follows the SSAC meeting. So there's SSAC meeting on this Monday, so that following one would be 2 weeks from now. So that would be a request to have that agendized. And yeah, so.
And Mr. Chair, I would add to your request that it be sufficient enough time that we can have a discussion and not be rushed. It can't be
Yeah.
30 minutes. It's got to be an hour at least, I think.
Yeah, I think an hour, maybe even an hour and a half if we have the ability. And it could be towards the end of the day so that other applicants can be moved through and then we can have that discussion at the end when we're really exhausted and hate each other.
There could be cookies.
Yeah, that could be a good idea. Okay.
Coffee?
Cookies and coffee, yes, and that's part of the request. And a pony. All right. Any other requests? All right, any other, continuances, withdrawals, future agenda items, or appeals? All right, seeing none, let's go on to item E, subcommittee reports. Signs, designation, State Street Advisory, Plaza de la Guerra, objective design standards, and et cetera.
Well, I can inform you of what I don't know about the State Street Advisory Committee.
All right.
And maybe actually you may know more than I know. I don't know.
I might.
Yeah, and jump in if you feel free. Yes, there is a meeting scheduled for this coming Monday, the 18th. And I was just trying to find prior communications from Tess regarding what is expected to transpire at that meeting, and I couldn't find it. But my recollection is that we should have received, the State Street Advisory Committee members should have received from the staff background information on what will be discussed at this meeting. Now, we have not seen, or at least I have not seen any background information. That background information would be drafts of the documents that she is working on, as I understand it, as well as some drafts of possible design elements that a number of local architects have volunteered to contribute so we can visualize what might be happening there.
Yeah, so I can give you a little bit of update on that. That will be coming. So I think the State Street Advisory Committee will be receiving something by the end of this week, I believe.
Okay. So I'm looking forward to that, and we will then be able to discuss at the State Street Advisory Committee meeting what the progress is going to be. And I doubt that we're going to see the progress that was indicated in prior discussions that they've actually brought before us. I just don't think things are moving that quickly right now. So we're going to see something on Monday, and then hopefully in the following HLC meeting, we will be able to discuss what we saw.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be a good thing. So that's really all I know right now, and I'm not sure that Tess, is she still?
Chair Grenbein, through the chair to Commissioner Lenvik, Tess Harris is not in attendance at this hearing right now, and then you've announced that the hearing is, or that the State Street Advisory will be meeting on the 18th, and you've requested that background information from staff, and I think we should leave it at that.
Yeah.
And I would add one more piece is just, so because we're agendizing an item for 2 weeks from now, I think it would also be good that whatever information is passed on gets also passed on to all of HLC members, and anyone
Good
who wants
idea.
to watch the recording can.
Good.
Absolutely.
Regarding Commissioner Ensberg's request to put Landmarks Commission's concerns about EPV high on the list of items, I understood that you wanted all of the State Street Advisory Committee members to know that that is an important feature and should be high on their program as they review the project. And we can ask them to do that, and I think that they know that. We certainly can't demand that be the case. Yeah. Yeah. So we're kind of in a holding pattern right now, and I may or may not know more than I've told you, but I don't know. You know more than I know.
Yeah, and we'll all know more later.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so, okay, any other subcommittee reports?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Lee.
Designations met. We reviewed 2 properties, took action to recommend that those properties be designated to the full HLC, and we should see that on a future agenda.
Regarding,
Chair,
if I may speak,
Commissioner Lenvick and then Commissioner Jordan.
if I may speak to designations, I've noticed several buildings on State Street that I felt were important buildings to be recognized, and asked staff to look into the possibility of doing that. And I was corrected that we don't have to designate buildings in the EPV as being landmarks or structures of merit or whatever. We took action maybe 6 months ago or whatever it was to designate EPV as a area of historic importance or whatever the proper terms are.
District?
A historic district, right. And that automatically makes any structure in there protected, whether it's landmark.
As a contributing.
Right,
as a
right.
contributing
So
structure.
my
Doesn't have
concern,
to be individually.
right, my concern that some buildings don't have a structure of merit or landmark tagged on them is not important.
Yeah, because it will
it-
come and it will be through the lens of how
Right,
is this building contributing? So it's
Right,
just sort of
exactly.
an automatic blanket. and
Yes.
you look at it
So
case by case.
I learned something that I wanted to share with the rest of you.
Great, thank you for sharing. All right, Commissioner Jordan?
On the objective design and development meeting, I'll keep this short in the interest of time and also because I missed the last meeting. It was met 2 weeks ago. They're still working on the draft, focuses on the definition of the architectural styles and a so-called style map where they would be applied. Work continues on the draft, and we'll see something eventually.
All right, thank you. Any other?
Chair Grumbine?
Commissioner Ansberg?
For some reason, the State Street Interim Committee, which is one of our committees, isn't listed.
It is,
The interim committee.
is it a
you-
subcommittee?
It's
What's
a
the-
working group.
Okay.
Yes, and I can,
But we can still report during, and this is still the space to report back.
I believe so.
For work
And we
groups,
can
too.
also add it to this slide
Okay.
as well. I would just need to check with.
And
the
maybe
acting
you can
supervisor
just
that
change
there's
it
no
to a
reason we
list of
couldn't, but-
subcommittees and work groups or something like that, so that we can
Absolutely.
add those in and make sure we're reporting back.
Okay,
Okay. All right.
thank you.
All right, anything else before we move on? All right, let's move on to item 1. We are,
20 minutes.
yeah, 20 minutes behind, and I think we know we only have 2 items, so then we always just, nature abhors a vacuum, we always just go for it. Okay, so we'll go on to the archaeology report. Hopefully this one won't take us, another half hour, so. 1150 San Roque Road, this is item number 1. Property is not historic or within a historic district. Proposed construction of a new 2.5 million gallon chlorine contact basin at the city's Keter water treatment plant, along with upgrades to the plant's existing sludge drying bed, gravel road, and landscaping. Request acceptance of a Phase 1 archaeological resources report prepared by Dudek. Dr. Glassow reviewed the report and agrees with its conclusions and recommendations. So, welcome. If you could introduce yourselves for the record. You have to turn the microphone on there. Yeah, perfect.
We love sludge drying beds.
As I assume.
Yeah.
Chair Grumbine, commission members, my name is Philip Maldonado, supervising engineer here with the city in Public Works, also the project manager for this project. With me today is Dr. Michael Hale from, Micah Hale, apologize, from Dudek. Just to reiterate your summary, the project here at 1150 San Roque Road is at Arcata Water Treatment Facility, the installation of a new $2.5 million gallon chlorine contact basin. In the center of the parcel, The purpose of the project is really to conform the treatment process with current operational best practices. It is a decent amount of work there, so we enlisted DUDEC to develop this archaeological report prior to really moving forward in the design. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Hale to discuss the findings.
Hello, it's good to be here. First time in front of you guys. A long time, I think. So in our report, it included archival research, consultation of historical maps, historical aerials, modern aerials, overview of the permits that have been let out to the treatment plant over time, and analysis of everything in a 1 mile vicinity that could help us understand the geomorphology and the potential for buried resources at this site. One single thing we found really drops the potential for archaeological resources here to basically zero, and that's in 1953. The entire site was graded completely. And what that did was it pushed massive amounts of matrix downslope. The only potential that exists for native soils that are undisturbed, relatively speaking, would be beneath that matrix, and this project will not go beneath that. I don't think that anybody will ever go beneath that fill. So in this case, we do, under CEQA, we have always have to consider if there are future impacts or effects that we're not considering, and that is an inadvertent discovery. And so we have clauses in the report to develop a worker environmental awareness program to inform people about what they might find in the off chance that they did see something when they were breaking ground, and how to report that. And for there to be an archaeologist on call to be able to respond in an emergency situation and time frame to check those discoveries out. And then California policy requires us to put in the law to inform people about what happens if we find displaced human remains. So those things are in the report and give guidance for the project going forward and how to deal with something that's inadvertent or unexpected. But it's my strong opinion that that will not occur.
Thank you. All right, so with that, we could go to public comment. So any member of the public wishing to comment on the report, the archaeology report, can do so. Anyone in the room? Okay, not seeing any.
All right, thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, we don't have any virtual participants, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, back to the commission. Any questions or comments by the commission? Yeah. Commissioner Drury?
Yes, so there's no indication that the watershed to the west, that big canyon, San Roque Canyon, there's no activity historically?
I just turned it off. There's actually prehistoric and historic activity all around the treatment plant.
But when it's graded off, that's the end of that for the project.
It is. There are a number of resources listed in the report in terms of their distance from the area of potential effect, the area we identified as the limits of disturbance, or where indirect impacts could occur, which may be later in time or transient in nature. And when we look at those resources that are nearer to the project, there's virtually no chance, absent a major slump on the side of a hill, to cause that, and that would not be related to the undertaking.
Well, thank you.
All right, Commissioner McClure?
I have a question. Does this replace an existing mixing tank?
Chair Grumbine, Commissioner McClure, yes, it does. It's a solids retention basin that is there that will be demolished, and then in that space, this chlorine contact basin will take its place.
And it sits in the grade, kind of, or is it above ground?
It's in the grade, yes. In the
And
grade.
then, could you describe what that is? It's a giant tank of water, and then you put the chlorine in it and swirl it around, and then when you take it out, it's chlorinated kind of thing, or?
That's actually a great description of our current structure, which is the clear well, which is just a big reservoir. We inject chlorine before water enters the clear well, and it kind of floats through, meanders through, and then goes out into the distribution system that allows enough time to contact the water and provides disinfection. This tank will be smaller, it'll be about half that size, and it'll have baffling in it, and it'll run like a serpentine course and just really mix that water to make sure you get contact time in a shorter period of time, which is just gives you greater certainty.
And is that chlorine, is that a gas or is that a liquid? Just curious.
Oh, absolutely. It's liquid. It's a hypochlorite that we use up at Cater.
Thank you.
And are you lining it with Spanish tile? Okay.
Not at this time.
Mr. Chair,
All right. So any other questions?
I will
Or
make a
comments?
motion
Okay.
to accept the report as presented.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. I heard Commissioner Uli. Under discussion, any other discussion? All right. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jury,
Yes.
Commissioner Insberg,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And now we're halfway through. Yeah.
We didn't get to talk about sludge.
Yeah. All right. So now we're on to item 2. This is a new item for concept review. This is 222 East Cannon Perdido Street. Located in El Pueblo Viejo Landmark District, proposal to construct a new 3-story, 21,800 square foot residential building with a roof deck comprised of 24 rental units developed under the city's average unit size density, AUD, incentive program. The residential unit mix would include 7 one-bedroom units, 5 one-bedroom townhome units, 9 studio units, and 3 two-bedroom units with an average size of 644 square feet. A total of 12 parking spaces would be maintained on-site for the commercial office. Additional improvements include 7 bicycle spaces for the office and 24 bicycle spaces for the residential units, a new trash recycling structure, 1,000 cubic yards cut, 125 cubic yards site walls, and hardscape and landscape improvements. No changes are proposed to the existing commercial office building. The project was last reviewed by the Historic Landmarks Commission as a one-time pre-application consultation on June 8th, 2022, and conceptually reviewed by the Planning Commission on July 21st, 2022. No final appealable action will take place at this meeting. Project compatibility findings will be required for project design approval. And then there is the historic structures report as well. So with that.
Chair Grumbine,
Yes.
I do have some
staff.
staff comments to
Yes.
begin with before we turn it over to the applicant. So I'm Pilar Plummer, Associate Planner with the city. And just a little background, since it's been a while since the commission has reviewed this project. If you'll recall, some years ago, a project was presented to the commission for a condominium project at the project site with a proposal to keep the existing commercial building. That project included a number of technical studies that were required by the city as it pertains to the Santa Barbara Presidio Outer Wall Foundation, which is located at the southwestern corner of the parcel. So the applicant provided a Phase 1 archaeological resources investigation, a historic context study, and a Phase 1 historic structures report, as well as a Phase 2 historic structures report. Those were all accepted at the time. And then the project changed to be an AUD project. So that's what's referenced in the project description in terms of the last time the HLC has reviewed the project. It was presented as an AUD project, first with 34 units and then was later reduced to 27 units between the design review hearing in May and then the design review hearing in June. At the time, the HLC forwarded comments. That was only a one-time pre-application consultation. So that was forwarded to the Planning Commission for their concept review of an AUD project. As you're aware, the Planning Commission only reviews these projects conceptually. They're not the decision maker on the project. The Historic Landmarks Commission is as it pertains to the design. So they generally provided positive comments as to the project in terms of providing housing and sent it on its way. It's now before you. I would say, since you've reviewed it, they've also reduced some of the units, even more so, down to 24 units. And with that, I will turn it over to the applicant for their presentation. If you have any questions, I'm here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, if you could introduce
Excuse me,
yourself.
Mr. Chair, are there minutes?
Commissioner Drury?
Are there minutes for this? For the,
Could you talk to that?
So
Speak to that?
through the chair, because it was a one-time pre-application consultation, we don't typically provide minutes from that. This is your first formal concept review of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm wondering, can you tell me, was I at that last review? I just don't recall reviewing this as an AUD project.
So, sorry, and I just want to be clear on it. We reviewed this as a,
One-time pre-application
but it wasn't an
consultation.
AUD, was it?
It was as an
Okay, so it was
AUD
AUD
project.
condo.
It was condos before that, and that got reviewed several times. And then
Yeah.
it switched to AUD as a one-time concept.
Okay, but it's still
Yeah.
the same project that we reviewed as AUD, it's just changed units.
That's correct. So through the chair, and just speaking to what Commissioner House just mentioned, yes. So there was a condo project that is no longer proposed. What was reviewed as a one-time pre-application consultation by the HLC was the AUD project, so rental units under the city's average unit density program. And that was reviewed by the commission back in June.
I just want to, okay, so I want to ask about that. Has it, in the big picture, has the design changed much in terms of what HLC reviews, what we saw before and what we see now?
You mean from the condo project or from the
From the last time we reviewed, with the one time. I want to just, because if it has changed a lot, it's not worth it reviewing the minutes, but if it hasn't changed a lot, I do think it's worth reviewing what our comments were that we forwarded to Planning Commission so that we have it fresh in our minds.
Thank you, Chair. Christine Prone, the architect for the project. So what we have done is the project is now taking advantage of AB 2097, which does not require any parking. And in the prior iteration that you all reviewed, it included puzzle lifts, mechanical lift systems, and a garage towards the front. I know many of you struggled with that. That is now gone. So that will be probably the main. That's the primary change.
Okay.
We have a new landscape architect and a new landscape plan that we're very happy with. And then addressing some of the comments from this one-time concept review, there are tweaks to the building that you had requested.
So in that case, I think, thanks for that quick summary. So now we know sort of as we're listening to the comments, what to also keep in mind as we go forward and what we're about to see, so, and what we're about to be shown. So, okay, so let's go through the comments from before, and then you can address, as you address them, you can talk about the particulars of them as well. Yes, you can still do your intro, but I'll do.
We haven't actually started our.
No, that's right. Yeah, you should have the whole full 15 minutes. Sorry. Yes, no, that's a good. Thanks for keeping. Yes.
Maybe not.
Yes. Okay, so let's go through and like was said, this is our first time fully reviewing it. This is prior. It has been a one-time concept reviews. So let's keep that in mind. But these are our comments for the previous one-time concept review. In general, there are multiple commissioners that believe this project is going in the right direction. The commissioners especially appreciate the removal of the fourth floor, the lowering of the plate heights, and the lowering the mass of the building. The project still needs a lot of finessing, but in general is going in the right direction. The applicant shall work with the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation and look at ways the community might benefit from the historic resource or be able to access the historic resource. Provide more reviews from various places, like from Santa Barbara Street all the way back, and especially pedestrian views along Santa Barbara Street and Canon Perdido Street. For the next meeting, show the adjoining elevations of the neighboring parcels so that the commission can see the context of the height. Multiple commissioners are concerned with seeing open garages as well as a trash enclosure when coming down Canon Perdido Street. Study the garages and the trash enclosures and look at the landscaping and other detailing as a way of screening them. The landscape is appreciated. Next, minimize the stair tower up to the roof on the north elevation. Minimize in all ways in terms of the mass, bulk, and scale and visual impact. Restudy the gable and potential hip or other element. There is some concern with the depth of the wall pushed back between the gable and the hip. The stone entry element still seems a little awkward and needs to be studied further. Consider combining stone and plaster. At least a couple of commissioners agree that the west elevation seems to be the most massive elevation and should be broken up to articulate it. It is currently one large consistent height as proposed. And then play off the mirador differently and look at providing a different element on the north elevation. Look at shifting the building away from the historic resource a foot or so. Study how those buildings feel adjacent to each other when studying the elevations. All right. And then that was it. Those were the summarized comments. So,
Mr. Chair?
yes, Commissioner Ludwig.
I have a question of staff. So you indicated that this is not providing any parking because it's being proposed under Senate Bill.
Through the chair, Commissioner Lundvik, there is some parking proposed for the project. As far as the AB 2097, it is within that overlay, so they're not required to provide any parking for their residential units or the commercial office, but they are providing some.
Well, you say they're not required to provide parking for the office building?
They're not required to provide any parking for this project, but they are providing some, yes.
I would appreciate that description of the parking issue being provided in the project description, so that it's very clear what's happening.
So through the chair, Commissioner Lundvik, that's a good suggestion. So in the future, we can note that it's in the AB 2097 overlay and so forth.
So what you're telling me is that a project that was approved 20 years ago that had X number of parking spaces as required for office use now does not need any at all because they're building housing on that site as well. Doesn't that seem kind of strange?
Through the chair, Commissioner Lundvik, AB 2097 is just an overlay for the area, right? Saying that if you're within this specific area for this type of development, you do not need to provide parking. So that's just the standard that they have to meet, and they're meeting
Not
it.
provide parking for the housing portion, but not provide parking for any part of it at all?
That's correct.
Really? It's a wonderful state we live in. Thank you.
All right. All right. Let's now let's see. So we're going to start now. Okay. All right. So you have 15 minutes. Yeah. And everyone already introduced themselves. No, we haven't.
Did we?
No, introduce yourselves for the record. If everyone can introduce yourself for the record, you have 15 minutes. And please walk us through, especially talking to the points but not only those points, but those points, how everything changed or it was answered or not on those, and then anything else that's changed with the project and the overall design. So, okay.
So Trish Allen with SEPS. Katie Klein is our landscape architect. You don't have a microphone. So Ms. Plummer overviewed what I want to touch on in terms of sort of recent history for this project. So I won't repeat that. I did want to comment on some of the Planning Commission comments that were received, generally well received. They were enthusiastic for this project. They noted that the lot is deep into the site. The development is proposed internal to the site. This commission has recognized that as well. They commented that the site was walkable in terms of its proximity to downtown and lot services. Well located for high density and for a high density rental housing project, and a welcome addition to the community. As Ms. Plummer stated, we did go through our PRT part of the application process, responded to that, and have filed our formal application at this point. The previous project, the condo development that this commission has reviewed, we did have technical analysis associated with that project. So we still do have, we're just here at concept review, so we have not gone forward with our historic structures report to analyze the project in context. However, we did do the neighborhood context study several years ago. We continue to consult with our technical team. They have remained the same throughout the various iterations of this project. Post Hazeltine Associates are here. They've also been meeting with us as we develop this project. Further, we have had an approved extended Phase 1 archaeological resources report that has been presented to this commission, reviewed and approved. And with this design, we continue to consult with Mr. Stone. So I just wanted to mention that. And in the backdrop of when we were active with this project at the different concept reviews, we also did continue meeting with the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation to continue to discuss options with protecting the cultural resources, the Presidio outer defense wall. And I am here to state again that, this has been consistent throughout, that the owner is committed to preserving that resource through a conservation easement. And then the project, consistent with those mitigation measures, or I should say minimization measures recommended by Mr. Stone in that archaeological report. And those measures are noted on our plans, and Ms. Klein, when she gets to present her landscape plan, can point those features out to you. I think with that, I'll turn it over to Christine.
Thank you, Trish. So I'm going to just walk you through addressing your comments and some of the changes as requested. So what I think you're going to see here is prior design had a parking garage with mechanical lifts here. That is now gone, and we are just doing the open parking lot, as you see designed here. The trash enclosure remains the same. The stone wall at the front remains the same. We still have the little wooden gate entry, the pedestrian access, that all remains the same. The building footprint is largely the same. We did manage to pull the buildings apart a foot, an additional foot. And just to point out this kind of sawtooth section relative to that 10-foot setback, which is the historic resource buffer, that is the same now as you reviewed before, and it is consistent with the technical study that was done while it was a condo project. So that the project remains consistent with that technical study. The Zoom I always have a hard time with the Zoom. Why is that? Got it. So the elevations have been adjusted per your comments, and one of the requests was find ways to reduce the scale, the mass of the building. And in the prior iteration, we'd had roof structure over these patios. So we've revised this one to a lighter trellis element and removed this one altogether to help lighten up this elevation. Okay. This is the elevation facing the parking lot. And what you can see here, this had been a gable, and the commission was interested in seeing it as a two hips, so we've adjusted, but wanted to keep some variety, so we have one with a kind of a crown mold style and another one with the raptor tails. There was a mirror door that I have to admit was probably a little forced, so that was a good observation. So we've revised that to this kind of wraparound wrought iron, Juliet balcony, and lightened that up quite a bit. Another comment, and we'll see it in this elevation and in the west elevation, is this had been stone clad, and I think it was a good observation. It was just a little bit too much, and so we've opted to keep that in plaster and keep any sandstone more in the landscaping and in the sidewalls. And this is the elevation that is facing the existing office building. And you can see here, that's where we'd had that stone surround that's been removed. And this is concept, but I'm imagining we'll do some plaster embellishments, around a surround on the arched entry and maybe a base, things like that, but all in plaster. Keep it simple. And then this elevation is facing the south towards the parking lot behind us. And this has been also revised, a little bit more interest in the roof line than the prior iteration. And I Let me zoom out. Is there an easy zoom out, like easy zoom out or? Control 0. Control 0, thanks. We did add these additional elevations, and I don't know why this is kind of semi-transparent. It's not in reality. But that does show the existing building and ours adjacent to it. And again, I think you need to keep in mind how far back into the site that this is. And then again, the stone-clad site walls, and then the kind of wood gate that we're keeping, the little trash enclosure. And we are interested in including a kind of a wrought iron steel fence. I know the client has had problems with people using that parking lot and needs to get some control. We'll be definitely developing this with more detail. But we wanted to get the idea out there for you for right now. I wanted to revisit these. This is it's a point cloud with the proposed building here, and you can see how far back that is with the parking lot. And so I'm going to go first. I'm going to go through this because I think you wanted some clarity about what was happening with the surrounding building. So this is looking the existing office building, the new building. Here's our adjacent neighbor, and that's kind of a stair that's showing there, and it's coming through on the point cloud. But it gives you some of the context, I think, that you were looking for. And then walking down, this is looking into the site. Here's our existing office building, a little bit of our adjacent neighbor and the proposed project. And then walking on towards Santa Barbara Street, that's the edge of Paninos. There's kind of a little outbuilding there that's existing, the new project office building, and then our adjacent neighbor. And turning the corner, this is looking at, there's Paninos, so it's looking at the parking lot and our new project, the existing office building. And finally, looking from De La Guerra Street. This is walked a little bit into the parking lot just because that's the edge of our point cloud, and we thought it was the most accurate thing we could do for you. But you could see how you see that from walking into the parking lot, and if we were to take it from the street, you'd have more buildings, including 800 Santa Barbara Street in the foreground. Some elevations of the trash enclosure. There was some concern about the visibility of the trash, and I don't think we'd shown all the elevations. So we wanted to make it clear we will be doing a wood gate so that trash will not be visible. You can see it swung open. Just a small outbuilding for that. Yeah. And I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Katie, our landscape architect.
Thank you.
Do you want the?
Do you mind?
Oh, not a, you need a second one.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? So this first sheet is our tree protection plan. So the big thing to note here is we're keeping as many trees on site as possible. We're only removing 8. So there's 4 junipers here that are growing in a chain link fence. So we're removing those to do a low retaining wall and a new wood grape stake fence. So improving that condition right there. And then also these are paper bark Melaleuca trees that we're removing for the building. And we have a tree inventory list that clearly shows all of what's existing to remain. For clarity, this is the archaeologist David Stone's letter. I'll go through this at the end and just point out some of the items he's talking about in the landscape plan to show that we are following his recommendations. Here's our prelim plan that you have not seen yet. I'll quickly walk you through this, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. As far as the trash enclosure in the front, we will have some screening along the fence and all of that with some larger plant material. To be decided, we have a plant list. I think we're showing Little Ollie right now. The parking lot paving, we're doing a paver, 12 by 12 with a charcoal gray band. So some really nice enhanced detailing for the parking, and then trying to get some canopy trees in as well. Currently, we have options for an olive, fruitless olive, or a metrosideros, and then some accent trees in there as well. This pedestrian path, we want to do something like an 8x8 permeable paver, kind of like this image, to kind of nod to something more cobblestone looking like with a permeable paver. So that's kind of what these images are showing right there. As you walk through, it opens you up into a courtyard. So we have some visioning for that as well, with a nice fountain feature and then also some bench seating so people can enjoy this space. And then also adding some more canopy trees. We're proposing jacarandas here. And then along the building throughout, we're showing king palms and just palms in general. We have some shamrops, and I'll show you some pictures. Here is the kind of the visioning of the plants. As you continue to move through the site, we switch back to a smaller paver that opens you up to another little courtyard with seating, and then we have this nice alleyway here that we're doing in new permeable pavers. That is also kind of overflow seating. So a lot of enhanced paving. All the private patios are flagstone, and these are existing Melaleuca trees that are remaining here. And then I'll talk quickly about the conservation easement. So in the first 10 feet from this outer defense wall, well, first of all, David Stone is asking us to do DG with a steel border. So that's what's called out here in the notes. And then anything in that first 10 feet, we can't disturb more than 6 inches of soil. So what we're doing is we're doing gravel. We're doing 2-inch flagstone on 3 inches of sand base in these patios, and then just pots and planters, and then really low growing ground cover is this green mass here. And there's existing giant birds of paradise and chain link fence with a vine. You can't even see. It's a huge green wall along here we're not touching at all. And then we did do some quick elevations to understand, where are these palm trees going? Where are we adding some giant birds of paradise? And you can kind of get a feel for what's happening on each elevation through here. And that's it. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Okay, well, with that, let's go to, that completes your guys' presentation? Okay, let's go to public comment. Any member of the public in the room wishing to comment, you please fill out your speaker slip and we'll call you forward.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, we do have one speaker slip for Ann Peterson. So if you want to make your way up to the podium, you'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Is your microphone on?
There, should be
All right,
on
thank
now. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name's Ann Peterson. I'm the Executive Director of the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation. We've been following this project closely as operators for El Presidio de Santa Barbara State Historic Park, to which this project is directly adjacent. And we continue to monitor the project for potential impacts to the park and its historical and archaeological resources. The park encompasses the founding site of our city and the extremely sensitive archaeological and historical resources therein. A sensitive portion of the proposed project falls within the boundary of Santa Barbara Presidio Archaeological Site, California SBA 133. This site's listed on the National Register for Historic Places as an archaeological district. The proposed project is within 2 blocks of multiple city landmarks and structures of merit, including the Alacama Theater, and is less than 100 feet from the landmark Rochin adobe. And that would have been an interesting visual to see the impact on the view from the facade of the Rochin. In 2022, we held several meetings with the applicant to discuss a possible solution to ensure the ongoing protection of the archaeological resource. The affected resources included both in the 1974 acquisition plan and the 1988 general plan for the Presidio Park. Although I did exchange a brief email with the property owner in August of 2023, during which he conveyed his intent to meet with the trust before the project returned to review. We've not met since the Planning Commission hearing in July 2022. We had been having conversations about the protection of the resource that included either acquisition by state parks or an easement. We strongly encourage an acquisition, both to absolve the owner of unnecessary ongoing responsibility for a historic resource and also to support the development of the park. We're hopeful that this conversation about protecting the resource will resume for the benefit of both the applicant and their project, as well as for the development of the park. We've reviewed the plans submitted today, and we respectfully request that the Commission request more information about the protections that will be provided for the resource, both the detail of the physical protections and also how those protections will be enforced and monitored. The trust has and will continue to follow the project design closely. We appreciate that the applicant has made revisions to the original project proposal to ensure that it's more compatible with the site context. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
All right. At this time, I haven't received any other speaker slips, and we don't have any virtual participants, but we did receive written correspondence from Ann Peterson on behalf of the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation that was distributed to the Commission prior to the meeting. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, to the Commission for questions.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair House.
Could I see the site plan where it shows the iron gate and fence along the front? Musical chairs.
You might need to turn on your mic there, too.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner House, I'll just zoom in, I think, on this one. So it's shown here, it's 20 feet back, yeah.
Okay, other questions?
Mr.
Chair?
Chair?
Drury?
Yes. Just for my edification, how much of the presidio wall exists either above or below ground? I mean, if I walked over there now, what would I see?
What you'd see right now, this outline, that is from Mr. Mwale's analysis, that's the general location, understood location. What's visible, and he's here, he might be better suited to answer, is you'll see the stone boulder foundation along the edge. I think it's the foundation, but it's the stone, sandstone boulders and rocks that are on the edge with the chain link fence and heavily vined chain link fence above. That's what you see.
And then below, after that, going toward Canto Perdido, there's no visible wall, but you know it's there?
I believe it's understood that it's there, that the foundation is there, yes.
Okay.
I don't know how much, I don't know if that it's daylighted.
And actually, considering Mr. Mwale's here, would you mind coming to the mic and
It would be better.
we can opine a lot on it. And then also, I don't know if the historic structures report might be the best place to actually look at a picture of what it was, because it's been a little while.
What's the question?
So the question is, what do you see currently in that light gray triangle?
So in the light gray triangle, the farthest point out away from the property line where the actual exterior corner has been graded, so it's visible, but it's at grade. Up against the property line, there's a whole course of stones that's above grade.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So it's not, the stones in that triangle aren't all at one elevation.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the question about how much of the rest of the wall remains to the north, as far as we know, it's completely intact. It's been excavated in that yard, and it's been excavated in the parking lot by Panino. So it's assumed that
Which is the darker gray there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that interior corner of that wall has been verified right up against the property wall by an archaeological field school from Cal State Dominguez Hills in 1990.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
All right. And while we're on here, as a proposal, those palm trees, are they planted there?
Can you explain, with the one?
Or not palm trees, whatever
The Birds of Paradise, where the defense wall is?
Yeah.
Those are existing to remain.
Okay, gotcha. And then the proposed are your darker ones, right? Okay, or the colorful ones, okay.
I have one more question.
Yes, Commissioner.
There was, I believe in the 2022 presentation, there was something about a historic garage from the neighbor to the south. Does anybody recall that?
An easement along the back of the property? to
Yeah,
get to something?
beyond the property to the south toward De La Guerra, is the next house after the.
Can you zoom out for a little bit and let's maybe see? Or if there's a site
It
plan,
would be
actually?
The right side of the existing building there on the site plan, I think.
I'm just bringing it up because I just recalled that there was a historic structure or something that was affiliated with that old, the Bonilla house, perhaps?
Oh, yeah, if we can get the historians up here.
And it may not be relevant anyway, but still.
Historic structures aren't relevant.
It's getting late in the day. I'm Tim Hazeltine from Post Hazeltine Associates, and through the chair to Mr. Drury. I believe you're referring to the corrugated metal sided garage on one of the trust properties. And actually, I haven't looked at it in a couple of years, but it's either, I think, behind either the two small wood-sided houses, the cottages, or behind the Roisin adobe. But I believe that someone from the trust would have more information. But I remember that discussion. I remember that.
Wally, would you
Yeah,
mind going up to-
I remember that discussion also from one of our
Yeah,
meetings
okay,
from
but
back in
this
2022.
project doesn't affect that.
It's on a separate property, so when the report's written, as we've done before, what we look at is not a physical impact to that building, but whether the changes that the project is initiating have some effect on the setting.
Good. Well, thank you.
All right, and maybe we can go to, just for quick clarity, if there is there a, I don't know, plot plan or something that would give us the neighborhood to look at, and then maybe indicate about where it is that we're talking about?
I believe you're talking about this right here, that's the corrugated metal.
I believe so.
Mr. Molly, did you want to weigh in on it?
That's, the metal shed's behind the cottage at 828 Santa Barbara Street.
Okay.
And it is part of the state park. And yes, the foundation runs right through.
Okay. Metal shed over the foundation, for those that couldn't hear. Okay. The questions?
No,
Additional questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Butler.
Can you share what the overall height of the units are that you're proposing?
Yes, thank you.
Maybe go to the elevations when you do. And actually, do you have a section through or no?
I do.
Okay, that might be also helpful.
Oops. 14. I did note this, and my apologies, that we gave an overall, what we think is the worst-case height of 39 feet. I think we've looked at that, and it's a little lower. But to give you, because I saw that it was unfortunately missing on these drawings, I had them noted so that I could see it. It's at this corner. Yeah.
Okay.
At this corner from existing or proposed grade, whichever's lower, is 37 feet. And from this corner, and that's from I know that's from existing grade, is 38 feet. And this is turning the corner, so this is also 38 feet. So I believe 38 is our highest point right now, yeah.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Drury.
So that's roughly comparable with the existing building that's going to stay, correct?
It's similar in scale.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Right.
Mr. Chair?
Other questions?
Can I see the
Vice Chair.
landscaping site plan again of the parking area?
I don't know the sheet number.
Landscape matters too.
Oh, that's too far.
There is no page number 30.
21. Oh!
So what I was wondering was the number of parking spaces and whether or not tree plantings were required, but apparently there's, 7 or 8 in a row, so.
That's correct.
All right. Other questions?
One more,
Commissioner
Mr. Chair.
McClure.
You know that cribbing, that screen, that sort of screen element that you show on, I think it's the 3rd floor, maybe to the elevation?
This here.
Yeah, is those are those are guardrails?
Correct. It's a technique we've used on some of our other buildings where we take pavers and you grout them together in this open lattice work.
Does that, do you need that 4-inch sphere test? Does that kind of disturb that simplicity?
This will work. This is actually acknowledging that reality we live in, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Other questions?
Chair Grumby?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Commissioner Ansbert.
Could we go back to the site plan, or the landscape plan, the one you were at before? I guess that's good. So I'm just curious, it's a question about this wall, this historic wall, since our job is aesthetics and neighborhood compatibility. I'm just not sure where we have any, what's appropriate for us to even comment about that. So I'm looking for guidance on that. And then so if it is okay to ask any questions about it, how would the trust or people who are interested, maybe the public, whoever, would they be able to go there and see it if they wanted to, and how would that occur?
Well, that's a great question, and regardless of purview, happy to answer it. I mean, in our discussions with the trust, we want it to be visible, accessible, and viewable by the public, and would coordinate with the trust on how to carry that out. I think it would have to be from the adjacent property to access that would make sense. So, for example, if there was a group of kids on a field trip to, I mean, they do have these field trips where the kids go to the Presidio, so this could be, part of that tour where they can come and actually see the portion of the foundation wall that daylights in that corner, accessed from the trust side of the property. That's to be worked out with the language in the easement, would be my expectation.
Okay, thank you. And then as far as, it's all in the documents that you have from the historian about the protection of it and the ongoing monitoring or whatever needs to happen in terms of the resident of that particular unit, and how they would know that that's an important thing and not just a
Absolutely.
oddball bunch of rocks sitting over there in the corner.
No,
right? Would
full
there be some kind of
disclosure.
signage or something that would?
I think there would be some interpretive signage that would be worked out with the trust. Definitely disclosure to tenants. It was really analyzed as part of the archaeological and not the There's
Historical.
interesting overlap between the archaeological analysis and the historic analysis, but just wanted to clarify
Yes,
that for
thank
the
you.
record.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yeah. Vice Chair House.
Just to be clear on what you were saying, the last time we saw this, you did have a garage structure? Okay. Which was kind of a holdover from the condo project.
Okay,
And-
Commissioner Ansbert?
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine. I just remembered another question about the gate that you have there. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit more, and what is the, you mentioned about people coming in and parking, and are there other reasons?
I don't know.
Friendly neighbor.
Everybody's going to know
Good
now.
neighbor policy.
Yeah, it has been, if I'm correct, it's been a bit of a nuisance that you've had trouble with people parking illegally there, and, yeah.
It's a matter of parking, and then it's also, we just want to
Oh,
ensure.
actually, if you don't mind coming up for, so you can get,
Yeah.
others can hear you.
On the record.
On the record.
The TV audience at home.
So they want
Hi.
to know where to park for free.
My name is Jeremy Wasson, and, you know, parking is very flexible right now. And it's really more, I think, a recognition of the downtown core and some of the challenges it faces right now, and that we want to provide the most secure housing area possible for our future residents. And to that end, we want to make sure that only residents, their guests, and people who work on the property have access to the property. And so we're very flexible in how that comes about, but we just want to make sure that it's safe for everybody who lives and works there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Other questions?
One more,
Commissioner
Mr.
McClure?
Chair. Regarding that fence, could that be maybe something less than 6 feet, maybe like 4 feet 6, or some, a little less oppressive than height?
100%.
Okay.
Yes, it's, right now, it's just, yeah. We need more chairs up here. Yeah, absolutely. Right now, it's just kind of like us letting you know that we do want to find a way to secure the area for the residents and people who work there.
All right.
I have a question.
Okay.
If we have a fence and a gate for the parking lot, whatever, and you're looking for security, how do the customers or visitors to the office building get there to the office building?
I'll try to answer that, but go ahead.
You might as well stay up here. There's chairs back there, but they just did this for fun, just to keep you guys rotating.
I'll bring some in. You know, that's a fantastic question. And I think we're going to have to kind of address that and figure it out, you know, as we get there. But certainly one option is during normal business hours, it's open and available, and then we just close it on nights and weekends. There's certainly going to be access codes for everybody who lives and works there, and that they could also give to their guests. There could also be an intercom system where if there is a guest who wants access, they're able to call into any office or home located on the property, much like, you know, an existing security gate fence would work at any other property around town these days. So I'm confident we can figure that out and make it work and make sure that everybody who needs access to the offices or to the residences has access to them.
Okay. Well, let's just stay there for a second.
Okay.
We'll see if there's any other questions.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? All right.
As soon as he moves over there, I'll come up with one.
Okay, I'll throw one question out. So 10'6" for the top floor. Is there a reason for going that tall, especially on the top floor, where you can also get volume ceilings or other things?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. We have discussed that in the past with the commission, and let me walk through this a little bit. Sometimes we have flat roof, and that's where we need about 1 foot, you know, it depends on the roof, but by the time you do the roof structure, tapered insulation, I always ballpark 1'6". Our goal is 9 foot ceiling heights. If I go to the,
And do you have a section through showing that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's where you're going. Okay, great.
so you'll see that here, but we have, and let me see if I have a section through that. We had, yeah, here it is. Here's that discussion that we had before, where you asked us to find ways to reduce that plate height. So this will be, you can see it's actually will be an offset, probably a scissor truss is what I'd like to use, so we can get some volume in that ceiling. But that was dropped, that plate height was dropped.
Thanks. At least I'm consistent. I forgot about that, so that's great. Okay. That's it for my questions. Any other questions? All right, let's roll into comments. And I'll ask commissioners to make sure to address items that were, and actually maybe we can pull up the minutes from before as well. Items with, even though it wasn't a direct one-to-one, but those comments that we did make, if you do have, especially if you feel like things were met or not met, to kind of comment on those. This is just for concept review, so we're just having a series of comments summarized, right?
Chair Grumbine, you would be making a formal motion, but it's just concept review. There's no decision that can be taken at this hearing.
Okay, and so, thanks. And so then if we can just make sure we cover any of these that you want to cover, and then also any additional comments and thoughts that you have had. So who wants to kick us off? Commissioner Jordan?
You know, and actually, just to add on to that, if there's any visual aids you want the applicant to return with, you know, now's the time to really be asking for those. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll address the corner of the Presidio walls, I believe at the southwest corner. And first of all, I'm very pleased to see the owner here at this, because I'm very mindful of the concerns expressed by the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation. And it makes me think about why it's important to protect things like the remains of the Presidio. We protect in order to educate. That's one of the reasons that you do that. And access is important to an educational plan. So the ability for school groups, for example, to walk around the Presidio and to get to the different corners. So I am very concerned about the protection, the efforts taken to protect that southwest corner. Even though it's not terribly much to look at, it's just a row of walls, it is very important to the history of Santa Barbara. So going forward, and I think this is headed in the right direction, I have no major objections to it, but I would want to see not just a promise, but a real plan for protecting that corner, and protection includes access. And I think the Santa Barbara Trusts for Historic Preservation's raised the issue of who's best positioned to protect that. Is worth seriously pursuing by both sides, both the trust and the owner. So that's my comment.
Okay. All right, who wants to jump in next?
Well, I have a theoretical comment.
Okay, let's go. We've got all afternoon.
You know, if we were looking at this as a vacant piece of property, and a project came in, an applicant came in with a project, we probably would discourage parking in front of the building, front yard parking. That would not be something we would want to do. It's not in our guidelines necessarily. It's, we discourage it in other projects, and it's not community friendly, you know, it's not walking friendly, so on and so forth. So I'm wondering why we would accept parking in the front yard here when parking isn't required. I mean, we've been told it's not required, so why wouldn't we put a Spanish colonial Mediterranean building or portion of a building in the front yard as opposed to putting parking in the front yard? It's a theoretical question, and I'm wondering if we're looking at a new project, why we would accept that today. Now, the adjoining property to the west is all parking lot. The properties that are on the balance of the street and across the street, there's no parking in front of those buildings. So we're perpetuating something that we might not normally do, and I'm wondering if that's what we want to do.
Mr. Chair,
That's a
could I
comment. Yeah.
theoretically respond?
It's a comment, okay?
So I think that this might pull you into this conversation, but I think we actually had a previous design that actually did that, and we wanted to push it away. And I actually agree with your line of reasoning in general. The street frontage shouldn't. Now, luckily, there are in my at least there's two little cute structures that are, helping hold a little something better than a wall and a parking lot, in my mind. But I agree with the general principle of urban development on that street, which should be in a proper Santa Barbara way. There should be a building there. And so I agree with that general aspect. I think that at the same time, we also we're in the hopes of keeping things visually smaller, we were pushing things towards the back of the lot and encouraging development towards the back of the lot. So would that they had proposed on this round or later, a building in that where the parking lot is, I think, of course, that makes total sense as an urban, I myself think that makes total sense with our guidelines and our urban design of that street for Santa Barbara. So I agree with you. They aren't proposing that now, and I don't know how much we can blame them for it.
Well, it's a new project.
We told them not to do it years back, but so that's the part of that discussion. But I hearing the applicant also agreeing with that. That was my memory from probably 3 or 4 years ago plus.
So through the chair, just another point that I didn't mention. I did mention visual aids, but this project currently does require story poles because it's within 150 feet of historic resources. So if you do want to exempt the project from that, you can do so. If you want to have the applicant provide more information with respect to that, include that in your comments as well.
Okay. Thank you for that. And actually, so I'll jump in on a couple of the. Maybe we can run down this list and just discuss these really quickly and see what we can cross off the list or what one we want to highlight as still not outstanding, because I think that this could speed things up also in the long run. So, okay, so in general, there are multiple commissioners feel it's going in the right direction. The removing of the fourth floor and lowering the plate heights and lowering the massing of the building. Project still needs to be finessed. So in general, is everyone still in agreement with that? It hasn't changed a lot. In terms of that basic design of where it currently is.
Yeah.
Is everyone still? Okay.
Not sure.
Not sure. Okay. We at least have one not sure. Okay. Okay, the applicant worked with the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation and look at ways the community might benefit from historic resource to be able to access the historic resource. So this goes to Commissioner Jordan's point. Is everyone in agreement with that? Basically, there needs to be both a protection and access plan, and to encourage continuing working with, and that being part of where, as the project goes forward here, that very soon needs to be the part of the next proposal, in terms of design.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that seems like we're all in agreement on that. Okay. Provide more views from various places like Santa Barbara Street. All the way back means scooting all the way back, and especially pedestrian views along Santa Barbara Street and Cannon Perdido Street. So I don't think that we saw those really. The Cannon Perdido Street, you had some shots, and that I think was good. But I think we do want more scoot further back in all different angles, especially I think if we want to tie this to a request for not doing story poles, which I'm assuming that it would be a request. So in my mind, we haven't seen the visuals that would convince, well, at least me, and unless others are already convinced, that we don't need story poles. And I think that that's part of it, is these perspectives from further back and from the public view from all different sides, what we're going to see.
And Mr. Chair, I would add, those, pardon me, those visuals should be at eye level, not from the air.
Yep.
Not seagull level.
Yeah, 'cause I'm not up there.
Okay. Okay, and then for the next meeting, show adjoining elevations of the neighborhood parcels so the commission can see the context of height. So you had one that had the overlap, but I don't think that, I think we need a good, basically at least a half a block. Show us the buildings a couple properties down, and so we have context of that street elevation. I think that's what we were asking for. We have part of it on the one, but you don't have anything on the other way, and that's typical to be requesting as part of.
From Garden up.
So basically, Santa Barbara Street, half a block. It's on basically the middle block, right, middle of the block. So I think we're going to want at least say 2 properties to either side of that corner, which it's at. so that we can really see it in context with at least the next couple buildings.
Is particularly important on that elevation, Cano Perdido, 200 block of Cano Perdido Street, because the trust occupies most of that block. So that is a context.
Sorry, I'm trying.
The trust occupies, am I correct?
No.
The corner.
Well, no, I mean,
No,
from,
their office is across the street.
So I think it's basically
No.
south of
Alcama
Pino
Theater.
on Santa Barbara Street, those next two
yeah,
properties.
exactly, the other side of the street.
Yeah, here we go. Let's just look at a map. So
Where's the project?
Right there. Yeah, so basically, so one is seeing it in context with the purple on Garden Street. 800 Santa Barbara Street, can you hover over that?
No.
Down at the other corner.
With a black square.
Yeah, there. So that, from that orange there, that Army Hospital, and so that whole street frontage, and basically you'd have a background of the apartment building kind of rising above.
You don't see it, but we're happy to show you. You don't see it.
Oh, but not just in perspective, in elevation, which I think should rise above what is on Santa Barbara Street. Yes,
Can I ask
Mr.
a
Levy?
question? How is that parking lot on the east of you, how do they access that parking lot from Cano Perdido? Go back to that site
Can we
plan.
go back to the site plan?
The
So
park,
that- Go off Cano Perdido Street. Right, go up with your arrow.
Up to the left.
Right there, that, right where you were, that parking lot right there in the middle, how's that get?
There's a little finger on
There's a little sliver, right, yeah, just above the arrow.
sliver next to the building.
Yeah, so basically, you've got that one building. If you can get this building right here that you just went by, the yellow-ish building.
Oh, I see.
What I'm trying to suggest is that the view from the trust building, the Alacama Theater, and Peterson's office, that looking toward the proposed project.
That's
I
like
think
basically
that'd be
this.
still-
Across the street.
Yeah,
Yeah,
across the street.
that
that's
was the
like
view
this
we
Google.
showed you.
Yeah, so that was the elevation that you had. Can you go one more?
That was the 3D view that we showed you. Was
You
exactly
did?
what you're asking.
Okay.
Can we go to it real fast? Because I think you have some 3D views that do show,
So this,
Oh.
there we go,
these
that one.
views, pardon me, yes, that's exactly what I showed you.
Yeah.
Below that, yeah.
Here is at the sidewalk across the street.
There's the gate, right? Your gate.
You're
Right.
seeing.
And here we are farther up.
We're getting along.
So these are the views that we've already shown you that you're asking for.
Yeah, so on Cano Perdido, I think you have more.
Right.
That you don't have them on Santa Barbara, and you don't have them across the street on Santa Barbara, where you're looking through the block, through the parking lot, past Panino's, and seeing what you can see. And you might not be able to see anything, but I don't think you have those. If you do, can you show them?
We showed the one looking from Panino's parking lot because that was the only place you could see the building.
Okay.
But
So
I'm
maybe-
happy to go take
Yeah,
those
take it
views as
further
well.
back from Santa Barbara Street, and then say, this is where, across the street, and just have an arrow, this is where it is, you can't see it, and if that's the case. But try to find where you can see it from Santa Barbara Street, if there is a spot.
We're
'Cause
happy to
then-
do that.
Okay, because that'll help put it in, as opposed to
We're
that.
we're modeling a whole block for a 24-unit apartment complex, by the way.
Well, maybe you can do a Photoshop from a photo with putting it in to show where it is. This is, well, I guess the other option is to do story polls, right? Because the argument is, if you're going to do 3D renderings to try to convince us, and 3D models to be able to allow us to see that it doesn't need story polls, I think that's the case to make, right? So,
Polls or renderings?
yeah.
Usually it's both, is what our experience is.
Sometimes it is. It's a gamble.
And will we have views from the Presidio property at the chapel, for instance, the forecourt of the chapel, looking at catty corner across the street? I'm just trying to figure out
So
how
actually,
this is
if you
gonna
go to
fit
that
in.
3D, the aerial above, what you're asking for, Commissioner Drury, is from basically where the aerial is, if you can zoom into the big aerial. You're basically asking for shots from basically over to the right, so hover over Panino's,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
go catty corner to that, which is diagonal across the street. You're saying a shot from that, will
Yeah, I
you
mean,
see
that's-
anything?
that's-
So we're now
immediate visual.
modeling multiple blocks for a 24-unit apartment complex?
Chair Grumbine?
Yes.
Why can't they give, a photo? I mean, something.
Yeah, that's also a
photograph, you don't
potential.
have to
It's a
3D
3D
it, but a photograph
visual.
from that, like if you were at the front door of the chapel and you were looking across, what would you see? And you can just take a photograph of that and maybe implant somehow, I don't know. I think that's an important,
That's what I'm after.
yeah.
Yeah, and and it seems like that those are all the little one-story buildings up front are actually going to still, block the view or not. You won't be able to see the three-story building way back behind. But that's, I think, part of the argument is that it's not consequential. Okay, can we go back to the list? Okay.
Chair Grumbine?
Yep.
Didn't we just previously say that we were okay with the size, bulk, and scale? So I'm wondering why we're kind of talking about this.
So I think we were giving general, but we might see certain things from certain views. We're not signed off on it, and we definitely haven't given it project design approval. So I think this is, and we haven't okayed no story poles. So I think this is part of that process, and I think we're putting comments saying, in general, we're thinking it is okay. We want to make sure by seeing it from all these angles that it is actually okay. And some commissioners aren't totally sold on it, and so I think it's moving in the right direction, and we're mostly comfortable with it, but I do think we still are within our purview to be asking for those things as part of things going forward. Okay. Multiple commissioners concerned with seeing open garages, so that's taken care of, and the trash enclosure is closed up. Is everyone feeling comfortable with those structures?
Since
Okay.
there's no garage.
Yeah. Yeah. But now we're not comfortable with the open parking lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Study the garage and trash closures. Okay. Landscaping. Currently, the general feel for the current landscape plan. Let's just discuss that.
I think we appreciate landscaping.
Yeah, and
That's what it says.
That's what but that was the previous landscape design. So this is the new design. Is everyone feeling comfortable in general? Okay. All right. So that's good. Minimize the stair tower up to the roof on the north elevation, minimize in all ways in terms of mass, bulk, and scale and visual impact. Restudy the gable and potential hip or other elements, and there is some concern with the depth of the wall pushed back between the gable and the hip. Okay, so if we can go to the stair tower up to the roof in the north elevation. Okay, if you can hover over that and point that out. And was anything changed on that?
It was minimized to the extent feasible for a stair. And it is this is just a half story here, and we've kept these plates as low as possible.
Okay. Is everyone comfortable at least with the massing of that? Okay.
And that's an elevator tower, is that what I see?
That's the stair tower, and the beyond is the elevator tower.
Right there. Yeah, okay. And then let's go, and then the massing of this with the hip roof on the right and the Mirador shift. I don't know if that's in this comment, but, and then we can also talk about the shifting of stone because we're all in the same elevation.
I'm digressing from your recitation of the comments, but as I look at this elevation, what are those door heights up on the third floor there? How tall are those doors?
I believe those are 8.0 doors. We try to always aim for 8.0 doors for the
Really?
light in the
Really?
units, yes.
It,
The proportions are always so nicer.
the scaling of those doors and the window head heights and such seem to be uncomfortable to me.
Attenuated.
Whatever, they're not, it's not a comfortable elevation.
Uncomfortably tall?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of wonder why there isn't more white around the top of the doors and why the windows have got to be 8 foot high at the head. And those are things that are not people-friendly necessarily on the inside of a small unit. And they don't look comfortable on the outside either.
It's for slender people.
Slender people, true. I'm just saying, I don't I think that needs to be carefully looked at from the standpoint of a composition, an exterior composition needs to be looked at.
Chair Grumbine, can I kind of tag on to that
Sure.
comment? I would agree with that, and I think what also plays into this is this whole kind of movement of, these taller plate heights from what has been traditional in years past. And I would argue that in some of these smaller, I hear people say, oh, well, these units are so small, and so we really need high ceilings. And I would argue that that isn't necessarily true. I think when you have small proportion rooms, that the lower height of the ceiling is actually more comfortable and, better. So, this is just something that's been a trend that we keep seeing, but it does drive the height of the building up. And then you have this issue with the doors. So I just would like to make that statement.
All those old Victorians with their 8-foot plate heights.
All right. We're staying on comments on this side. So what other? So on this, coming back to the gable, hip versus gable. Are people comfortable with that? And the shift to the balcony from the mirador seems like it's going in a nice direction.
Sure.
You know, the existing building on the site presents gable ends to the street.
And this has gable ends on it as well.
The two projecting elements are hips.
They were gables. You said do it.
Yeah, the one on the right got changed per our request from gable to hip.
Chair, I would say I like what they did here to make the two match. I think that's good, but I don't think there's any reason to make one of them with the rafter tails and then the other one different. I would just make them the same all the way. Instead of having this one, this looks like, what happened there? So I would just put the rafter tails everywhere, I like the rafter tails. And then the mirador, I think that's a good solution, the way they came up with taking that away. I would agree with that.
Would you go back to the long view perspective?
I'm not sure which one I need to go to.
The perspective.
Your point cloud.
Okay.
Yeah. There. So blow in on that.
The big one?
Yeah. So I say to myself, is the existing office building, now I understand it's just a volume study as opposed to having windows and such on it, but is the office building with its roof, configuration more pleasant than what we see in the proposed condo?
No.
No.
Is that a question?
Definitely not. And that's from the bird's view.
For a commissioner who says, quote unquote, simplify, I don't think we've simplified this building.
So I think we should also look at it. I want to be careful about a couple things. First, this building, your opening comment was a good one in terms of why is there a parking lot towards the front?
Going downhill from there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that I want to be very careful that we're not giving constantly contradictory info, and we have to respect the comments that we've made, even if now the comment now we disagree with from 4 years ago, which helped direct them away from having a building towards Cannon Perdido Street, or if we're having them reconsider all these roof changes or whatever. I think we do, if we have specifically said something, we need to specifically weigh in on whether we're okay with that change or not. And the not would be what the previous design was. And I think that we should be careful about constantly telling and then rewinding and telling and rewinding. So to that effect, if we can go to the elevation on the hip, I think having the hip roof accomplishes one of the things which I think we were still trying to accomplish, which is mass bulk scale feeling lower. It has a nice symmetry to it, and there's an asymmetry with the balcony, which they changed from the mirador. It seems like this is working well, and our comment was well studied, and they produced something that's nice. If someone really feels strongly that they really want that gable back, then we should have that discussion of whether we feel like that gable should come back or not. I, for one, think that there's more white wall there and it'll feel larger. And if we're trying to get it down in terms of the scale visually, then I think it makes sense to keep with what they've done.
Straw vote?
Yeah, so is everyone comfortable with this elevation?
I just have a question before
Yes.
we have a straw vote.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Gray.
So on the upper right roof lines, can you explain the distortion architecturally?
That's a gable, I think, on the upper right. The white triangle one, you want to?
There's
That's a gable. and
There's
then
that.
the Slight angle difference, I think.
Right, we played with the angles of the building forms to create interest and make it feel more rustic.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. In general, straw vote, is everyone feeling comfortable with these elevation changes?
And Mr. Chair?
I'm comfortable with the mass. I'm not comfortable with the door, window configurations.
So I captured that as a separate note, and the note I have is to look at lowering the heights of the doors and windows and to basically look at and consider. I think that is.
Is that consensus?
Yeah, so what is.
Yeah, pardon my interruption, Mr. Chair. Do you want to take a formal straw poll on that item?
Okay, we'll start with everything without, but not the windows and doors. Liking everything else about the elevation currently, aside from the windows and doors. We'll talk to the mirror door change, and the hipped roof change, and let's also throw in the de-stoning of the entry. and the stair. And the staircase. Those were all part of this elevation that we told the study. And we were questioning the depth of the section between the two hips. I haven't heard anyone say that they're uncomfortable with it, seeming good to me. Or if that would be also part of it, because we had commented on that before. So it'd be that basically that whole composition is this elevation composition is acceptable. And except for with the note of the doors and windows of the third floor to be discussed.
One other, if I could, about the de-stoning part.
Yeah.
That when they did the presentation, they talked about a little bit more ornamentation back to kind of refocus on the front.
With adding ornament to
Something
the entry of some sort.
Plaster-based.
Yeah.
Like rafter.
Well, yeah, or maybe color, I don't know what, you didn't say that, you said
just
plaster.
adding more detail,
Yeah.
with more detail to come. Yeah, okay, I think that leaves good general. Okay, straw vote for that? All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, it looks like we have got unanimous. Okay, so now, and now let's talk about the doors and windows for this.
Mr. Chair?
Yes. Vice
One
Chair.
suggestion would be a transom and have 6-8 doors or 7-foot doors or something like that, and a transom over, so the vertical lines aren't as strongly emphasized, and there's more of a horizontal element at the top.
So I think that's a decent thing to study and to study and consider, and how, and I think any other. It is a 9-foot ceiling in there, so in terms of the visual plate, yes, the visual plate's at 10.6, and in general, to the Victorian comment, I would say that in the Spanish, yes, historically, yes, and they're the tallest, and Paninos is right there, so you probably have a 12-foot ceiling to look at, but it is at least to a 9-foot is probably the typical on the Spanish Colonial Revival for that upper level, 8.6 at the least, or the most, least height. But I think you're trying to get that, but you've got a bunch of other structure too. So visually from the exterior, it looks like a little bit of a taller thing. So I kind of understand where both arguments are going with it, but I think that part of that, let's just say, as part of our study, and this isn't even project design approval. So this is for moving forward as an item to study.
So, Mr. Chair, so if the transom over the door is a plausible solution, that would allow the windows to drop to the top of the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then that's worth studying. So I think it's got to be a lot of things that can't look dopey from inside where your windows, doors are going all the way to the top of your ceiling, so.
Dopey, is that a?
Yeah. Yes. That's right, exactly.
While we're on this elevation, I think it would be useful to have a straw pole on rafter tails versus combination cornice and rafter tails. I personally prefer the rafter tails. It's not like they're two separate buildings and they're articulated differently. I mean, they're basically Same
identical.
thing repeated, so I think. the
Yeah,
rest-
and in my mind, you could either articulate the one on the right in a little bit more of a plaster cornice of some sort, and so there's actually a stronger difference, or you can play the same. So my vote would be towards having them study it with more refinements in mind.
That's good.
And as opposed to just saying all rafter tails or not. Okay, does that sound good for everyone? Just
Yes.
for us- Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Where'd you get that idea?
Why are we all here for every other Wednesday?
Chair Brumby,
Yeah.
as they're studying, okay, giving them options to study, the simplification feels really good to me. So, I mean, I would have them study, if they want to do a transom, okay, but I think it could also be just as effective without a transom and with a shorter door. Just keep
Yeah,
it
it's
simple
all
all
part of
around.
all
So
those
just
things.
both of those
Yep.
study if you would like.
Okay.
No striped awnings.
Oh, we haven't gotten to that.
Well,
Sorry.
yeah, y'all have a friend there. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the, if we can, now, I think that's good. I think we've got some clarity on that. Let's go to the comments again. Let's keep working our way through here.
Did we do the straw
We're down to the stone.
We all agreed on that?
Yeah, so the study rafters and rafter tails and more complex plaster moldings or making them the same. Or making the same. And then I also have a note of studying the third floor transom as part of the door and window assembly or lowering doors and window head height. Okay. All right, so then we are on to,
The stone entry, which is not an issue anymore.
yeah, okay. Okay, at least a couple of commissioners agree that the west elevation seems to be the most massive elevation.
Is that the
and-
elevation facing Santa Barbara Street?
Facing
Uh,
the office.
Facing what?
The office.
office, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Let's look at that now. Let's look at the west elevation. The one that,
This is the office building.
some poor office soul's got to stare at this whole time.
Yeah.
I think this is the one I believe that was.
Yeah, it was more massive. And actually, I had another comment that I was thinking about when we're looking at that is also the windows of the stairs, because I'm assuming that's the stairs. Maybe it's in that articulation that you make something more interesting and more, less big blank wall, or at least some interesting pattern within that wall of the windows. That might be a way of actually sprucing up this side as well. And breaking up some of that.
Or spruce tree.
Not dopey.
Just one other thing about that. I mean, we're not seeing the landscape with this, the layering.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess for one person, I would say I'm good with it the way it is, knowing that there's going to be, landscaping and trees and things like that that will,
Actually, let's take a look at that real fast.
Do we
If
have
we
this
can take a look at
elevation
that.
of landscape?
Yes,
Yeah.
she showed us.
I remember other elevations. I don't remember that one.
Oh, okay.
Voila.
Yeah.
All right. That looks better.
and there'll also be some
Yeah.
light fixtures
Yeah.
and other things that are going to come in, so I would leave it alone.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
okay, so so we said last time that it was a little bit overly blank or stark. How is everyone feeling now?
Well, I'd just like to make a comment about the number of little tiny windows on the.
You mean those cute windows?
They're only cute if there's few of them. A lot of them, they're not cute. It looks really busy behind the palm trees on the left.
That's a stair.
Could we not?
It might be good to keep this comment, the stair windows comment, and maybe there's a way of joining them or whatever, making something interesting out of it that doesn't make them feel so polka dotted as
Right,
well.
exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, that's what I thought you
Is
were
that a
going for.
technical term? Polka dotty?
Less polka dot.
If I may, one of the things that I think is really important when we're looking at these buildings, at least from my perspective, is that we allow certain sides of the building, the front of the building, the entrance to the building. We want them to put the money there. We want them to make something really beautiful that most of the people see when they're going down the public street or if you're coming into the building. So I would, that's why I can kind of step back and allow these other sides of the building to be a little bit more simple and basic, and, they just work nicely with this is close to the other building, you're walking through, there's trees. So I would just like to put that out there, that we kind of allow them not to spend the whole budget on, trying to ornament every single side, every elevation, and really focus on the areas that are, in the public, from the public right-of-way and, visitors into the building.
Yeah, no, I generally agree with that as well.
And especially since you'll never see the building like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. I do still think that those stair windows can be studied and without too much cost or anything else, can help the composition.
Yeah.
And then the one guy in the cubicle that has to sit and stare every day at that. Well, thank us.
you.
Well, thank us one day. Okay, all right, can we go to the comments again? Okay, and then
Play off the mirror door, that's not an issue anymore.
yeah, and then look at shifting the building away from the historic resources by a foot or so, study how those buildings feel adjacent to it. Okay, so then, did you study the shift? And I don't think you moved it, is that correct? And if not, can you explain the thinking on that?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. We did not shift it. It exceeds the requirements from the recommendations from the archaeological report, so we feel that it's accomplishing the goals that our technical expert has given us. And if you remember, we only have a couple points, corners of the building that touch that, and then we step away farther from it. So we did not feel that it was necessary to try to shift away, especially when, we did not feel it was necessary.
Okay. And so, and then our other comment from the beginning, it seems like does help to take care of some of that alleviation if there is a protection and access or some plan and solution. That seems like the real question, as opposed to simply the building being a foot further away from the resource. It's more the
Mr. Chair,
protection plan.
I
Yep.
think the most important question is the trust happy with the solution or the situation? That's the most important thing for me.
Okay, and I think we've heard from them and on it, so I think that's, yeah.
Continued involvement, and as Commissioner Jordan already said.
It is ultimately our decision, but we are mindful of the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation's interests in this. And we believe the applicant, but we want to see a plan, not a promise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
And
Commissioner.
also remembering this is a community treasure. This is not just the trust; it's the historic park. It's it's a lot of things besides one thing. It is the center of our city in a way, and it's a benefit for everyone.
Okay, so we've gone through, I totally agree, and we've gone through all our comments. Are there any additional comments we want to add on?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair House.
You've been waiting.
Yes, I have, ever since Commissioner Lundbeck expressed his concern, and I struggle with the same things. And, what is this project giving Santa Barbara? I see parking next to the street, and I see a 3-story boxy building behind low-slung buildings. And, I know I shouldn't compare it to the condo project before, which I thought was better modulated and, it was going in a great direction. This just doesn't strike me as appropriate to the surroundings and the neighborhood. So, I am struggling with it. It makes me wonder, considering that this parking area is 5 feet, varies going uphill, but I mean, It's like 5 feet higher than the sidewalk level, something like that. So I wonder whether or not you should consider a semi-subterranean garage that you go down into, and then there's a story of units on top of that, and then everything could be kind of 2-story instead of this large boxy 3-story mass. So I know that's not an inexpensive proposition, but I'm just saying that I'm struggling with it.
Okay. Are other commissioners struggling with it?
Well, I definitely am. I think it's an unfortunate land use solution. And I feel, I'm not sure that I feel that we have committed ourselves to the prior plans. They were back in in 22. And here we are, 2 years later, and ABR's comments really only by ordinance are only good for 6 months. And we oftentimes ignore that. But we have a different project now. We have a project with, no requirement for parking. And I just don't feel comfortable with it. I think that it could be a better solution, and it could be a solution which gives more respect to the trust property as well. We're really squeezing the trust property now, and I don't know that we need to do that. It's a question in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Uli?
I have the same struggle, and I agree with those comments. If the project by law doesn't require parking, then why isn't there a building there instead? If there were 2 buildings, then the historic resource would have a better chance of having a bigger buffer around it because it wouldn't be next to it. So I do struggle with that. I think the land use plan could be a better solution.
Okay, others?
Chair Grumbine?
Yep.
Maybe we could go back to the image from the street. I share the concerns of the other commissioners that have been expressed already. I do have a slightly different feeling about it. What I'm really struggling with is those gates and how they, because I feel that the building in the back there, it's almost like an infill building that does give us housing. And my favorite color being white. This is one where I would maybe tone it down a bit and maybe have it kind of blend in a little bit more and sort of be a little bit softer. But I don't mind it back there, but I don't like how the gates are. I don't think they're community friendly at all. Even if you were to put in like a hinged gate that was very ornamental and decorative, that would be more acceptable in my mind. But just having this just gated community thing, it doesn't feel good to me. It doesn't feel appropriate or friendly. And so I can be, like I say, I think that it can work with the landscape, and it's downtown. There's parking lots, so I think it's okay. It's just that I don't want to have to drive up and punch a button and then be let in. I'd rather, if you have to have security, I think it would be better to put it specifically at the building, like where you come in to the door. Something like that might be a better way of doing it. But it's not to say I don't appreciate what others have said, and it's certainly, parking lots aren't our favorite thing, but it's just really that gate that really is causing me problems. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Drury?
Yes, for me, it's the building can be made more attractive, certainly, but having an attractive building with a forecourt full of automobiles just seems to be a wrong idea.
All right. Other commissioners?
Well, I'm picking up on that point, and if the site plan did change and the footprints did change, the residents might have a little bit more outdoor space for for recreating or sitting. And then so I would prefer to see the site plan change. And then just, I was going to say the palms, the king palms are very nice, but I would think in addition to that, maybe you'd switch out to some columnar trees so there's a little bit of variation. And then I had a similar concern about the fencing, kind of like modern and not very HPV or PV, whatever it is. That's all. EPV. Thank you.
So can you jump to the, do you have a Google aerial of the whole site? On a sheet? No?
Go to your photo sheet. It's the last block, lower right-hand corner.
Yeah, there we go. We zoom there.
And then tell me how we get in that adjoining parking lot. I can't figure it out.
It's over here.
Where those cars are parked, you mean?
And then you maybe loop up. So on this, when I look at this, you can see that the parking lot, is there any, I can't even remember, there's none of the building is being demoed, right? That parking lot, front parking lot exists as is right now, right? Okay, so that's what I thought. So in my mind, would it be better for sure to have a building up front there to drop parking underneath as a underground parking or a split at least, and do another residence on top there? Yes, it would be better to have that as well as what the building is in the back. Right now, there's a parking lot, and with the proposed, there's going to be this building in the back structure that we've pushed and pulled and gone over and over and over. The only real change is there was lift parking that was in that parking lot that we were having a hard time with, and because of the proportions and whatever, but also because it was we didn't like the fact it was a parking garage, but we all had told them to shift the housing away from that area, so they put the parking garage there with a lift. So we've kind of gone around and around. In my mind, there's a parking lot right now. We'll have two little buildings if you do build this out per this, and with a better gate of some sort, or disappears during the day or whatever it is. And that's at least better than what's currently there for sure. And would I be supportive of an idea of building a building there? Definitely, in the future, or even as additional to this project. I would definitely be supportive of something on the front. But the question is that so much that we would direct them to change their whole design that we've been working hard on with them and on them on changing it all the way just to put a building back over there where they had before? And in my mind, I don't think that's right in terms of a move when they've come this far under our direction. And I would still be in agreement with if they did want to add a portion of building to the front, that would be good. So that's sort of where I'm kind of landing on all this. I know everyone's wrestling with different things. One might be better, but is it supportable or not? Or is still the criteria I think that we need to be questioning?
So, Mr. Chair, I generally agree with your description. However, when the project required parking, it had a parking lot that was being used for that purpose. But now it's a completely different project that doesn't require parking. And so the opportunity to rethink the site is before us, or before the applicant. And it seems that it would be prudent, or at least helpful, to study that and find out if that renders a better solution for the housing. You might even get more housing, I suppose, and the outdoor living space for those units, as the commissioner said, would be enhanced. So, in my thinking, if this was still a project that required parking, then I would say, okay, let's leave the parking alone. It makes sense, but it's a completely different project.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
I would agree with that, but, don't shoot me, but I didn't hate that garage building that was there before. I think it was getting there, and the fact that there was a building there was a benefit. And now that it's just surface parking, it seems like it's gone the wrong direction. I don't know what solution.
Sure, we'll let the applicant
Okay.
respond in some.
Thank you. I would just like to remind the board that in addition to, the commission requesting us to move the building from the front parking lot where we originally had it, the trust asked us to move that building to the back parking lot because it inhibited their views from the Panino parking lot looking at the mountains. So we've had this, we've been there, we're coming full circle.
Mr. Chair, I certainly appreciate that. However, views are not a right. To the degree that you block somebody's view of the mountain from across the street or down the street is not really something that we can force you to do. And it's unfortunate that, yeah, we've gone all the way around the block here, but.
So, Commissioner Ansberg?
Chair Grumbine, just for the dumb question here. So the parking that we're talking about here, who's using this parking? What is this parking for? As you've currently proposed, the parking that remains here is for who? Because it's not required. We have. So we've learned that it's not required, but it's there and you're using it. So just how does this work into the program?
The answer is forthcoming.
I want to understand.
And in fact, I'd like to invite Tim to join as well. In fact, you can use this chair because he had some comments, especially as they relate to the view shed, because apparently he can expand on that.
Yeah, okay,
Chair,
go
may I
ahead,
speak?
please. Yeah.
Thank you. There is a concern on, well, view sheds are not normally protected. However, when you look at view sheds from historic resources can be a consideration. In the case of the Presidio, from our estimation, from the beginning of the project, there were some issues, as just noted, about the views from the core area of the Presidio, which is the intersection of Santa Barbara and Canon Perdido Street, looking towards, sort of a kitty corner towards the mountains. And so there was some concern when the other building was proposed there that the height of that would introduce a building volume in an area that historically hasn't had structures since, I think, the early 20th century, late 19th. There were some adobe houses there and some wood frame ones that were demolished. So there is a consideration to be had about, a thought process about evaluating, if you put a building there, what kind of effect would that have on views from, say, the chapel and the sort of that intersection that sort of at the center of the Presidio, in a way, the footprint, what that would be. I mean, we can't answer those questions right now, but they were questions that we would have to evaluate in our report. Whether, if you added a volume there, say 1.5 stories or 2 stories, what effect would that have on the view shed from the Presidio towards the mountains?
And the answer to the question about the parking?
Okay. You got.
Thank you. I'm here. I've got my chair. The answer to the parking is we're going to find the highest and best use for the parking. And I can't tell you what that is right now, but it's certainly going to be used by either the residents, the commercial tenants, or their guests, or a combination thereof.
So can we go back to the rendering from the street, looking up at the project as proposed, so we can see how this all looks, not from above? I would like to say that I agree with a lot of what Chair Grumbine has said. I don't feel like it's fair or appropriate we've been around the block on this, and can we get down? Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Is there, I would like to say, I like that the building is in the back there, and that is more of a low, invisible kind of thing. And I think maybe there's an opportunity to study the non-required parking to, maybe you take some of the spaces out. Maybe you rework it in some way to make it a little bit more park-like, since it's all not required. It could become all park, for example, or any other thing like that. So I guess I would rather redirect, have them, I would appreciate what has been done to date and all the work that they've done to respond to all of the questions, all of our input, and that maybe we say, please study how to make this more community-friendly, maybe not have that gate, and maybe make the parking lot less of a parking lot and more of a garden-type area, and just study that kind of a solution, but not come back to have housing there at this point in time, anyway.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Tim, don't go away.
Well,
he's raised a point. He's raised a point here regarding interruption of use. Are you suggesting that the adjoining parking lot going west, existing adjoining parking lot going west, will never be able to have a building on it other than one story, because it would obstruct the view of the, from the Presidio? I mean, that's a pretty strong statement to say, well, we have to re-examine that and say, well, we can't do that. I mean, that property owner is going to come unglued.
We'll let him go ahead.
Part of the
Respond.
My point, Commissioner Lenvik, was that it would have to be studied. We didn't reach a conclusion. We're saying that's something that needs to be evaluated. And so, of course, without having a building design in volume, that's rather difficult for us to do. So if they did propose a building at that location, we would evaluate the volume of that building, its location, and its spatial and visual effects on the surrounding historic resources.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This agenda item was for a concept review, not for any kind of design approval. And what this concept review is clarified is it's a very eccentrically shaped site adjacent to important historical properties with recent state legislation that is complicating local planning efforts. And I think all those issues have been aired enough for a concept review, and that it's now up to the team to figure out what to do next.
Yep. Okay, I agree, and I think that for the sake of wrapping up, I think it seems like in the big picture, overall, all the comments that have been made so far have been, in addition to working with the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation for a protection and access plan on that, the architecture itself seems to be fairly supportable. I think the big piece of that seems unresolved right now is the parking lot, and the fact that there is no buildings on it, at least as per, because prior we were reviewing a 1.5-story tall garage that was a stacker, and we're having trouble with how the design was working on it. Aside from that, almost everything else of the project was the same. So that being the biggest component, it seems like, that is still in question. And I think from what a lot of the commissioners have said, and there's probably a variety of opinions on it, or a range of opinions on it, that in general, we don't find that surface parking is desirable. And so we're wanting to study how to make it feel more community-friendly, more like it's part of the street, and with the understanding that this is a street that has frontage. However that may happen, whether it's a small garage or another structure, or whatever happens, whatever direction the applicant wants to try to go with it, the main idea is a surface parking and is not desirable as a straight street frontage. We don't want to feel like it's just we're walking alongside a parking lot, and I think that's the biggest issue. And at least the previous design had a structure, so I think that was part of that's the main part of the reaction that I'm hearing. And I think there's a range of opinions of what it should be or could be, and I think it's going to be up to the applicant to figure out what they want, where they want to go with it, whether they want to show options, whether they want to come down clearly with one idea or not. So I think that's kind of where, which is an odd place to be, where we're pushing you to build more structure, but but I think it's because of the space. There's something that is from the last design that we're not quite happy with yet, and we want more study of. So with that, I think I'll try a shot at summarizing the comments.
Pardon my interruption,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. Before you go into summarizing the comments, I just wanted to remind the commission of the proper procedure. It would be to allow the chair to go through the summary of the comments without interruption, and then he'll open it up for discussion, and that would be your opportunity to edit, add, or delete any of the comments with the goal of creating a clear comment for direction for the applicant. And then just a reminder to the commission that these are action-based minutes, so the goal is not to capture every nuance of the discussion. That's what the recording is for. It's just to provide clear direction for the applicant. So with that, I
I'll
will
give it a shot.
turn it over to the chair.
Considering the last page was an entire page of, or page rolled over. Okay. All right, so let's give it a shot. So first, we want to thank the applicant for continuing to work hard at this project, and we continue to see it going in the right direction with the following notes, with the additional following notes. So one is to work with the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation and create a clear protection and access plan for how the resource will be resource of the archaeological resource of the Presidio wall will be handled. And yeah, I guess we said protection and access, so that implies all those things. To look, okay, so for, let's handle the story poles next. For the story poles, if story poles are not to be required, we would like to see visuals from across Santa Barbara Street of where the structure will be, even if it's not viewable, from multiple points along Santa Barbara Street. It seems like the Canon Perdido Street ones are fairly clear. Is everyone comfortable with what those views are? Mm-hmm. Okay. And as well as, I would say, the Presidio corner, the corner of the where the Presidio Chapel is, the corner of Santa Barbara and Canon Perdido for story poles, and then to be reviewed later as to decide whether they're needed or not. For the general comment on the plan or the design adjustments of the residential building, is favorable, and we appreciate you, the architect, having made those design adjustments, including the acceptability of the north elevation as proposed, with the one additional study of, actually two additional studies, one of the rafter tails and a more complex plaster moldings, or making the eave condition the same, and then the other study of the third floor doors and windows and their head height, looking at a transom and a smaller door and dropping the windows, or a lower head height for both doors and windows. Okay, got that one. Let's see. Another additional study is this on the west elevation, to study the groupings and pattern of the stair windows. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. You heard all the other comments. And then got story poles. Okay, the front, the fence and the gate and fence design needs to be more neighborhood friendly, community friendly, and so to look at how to design something that's that, more community friendly and fits within the neighborhood. Okay. The views, elevations. So the elevation drawings to be expanded on the Canon Perdido side, one more property to the east, and then on the Santa Barbara side to show the one-story buildings, including the Roshin adobe, that are directly in front of the, as an elevation study, directly in front of the new residence. Let's see, the trash enclosure and the, what was the other little structure there? Bicycle storage were acceptable as designed. But they may change, but however, the next step.
Yes.
And then the, let's see. Got that, got that. Okay, a landscape, and Commissioner McCreary got to help me with this. You had mentioned considering some more columnar trees.
Yeah, maybe in addition to palms, just something else, dark green.
Okay, in addition to palms and dark green. Okay. All right. And then, okay, so then for the last one, so the parking, the surface parking directly adjacent to Cannon Perdido is not desirable as all surface parking. So to study that area as being more neighborhood-friendly, park-like, and/or with a structure on it of some sort.
I think neighborhood-friendly is the wrong term to use. It should be urban-friendly.
Yeah, well, so Commissioner Ensberg.
What's the neighborhood?
Well, show us examples and that are good. But Commissioner Ensberg was kind of leaning towards a park-like setting. And you could do something that was more forecourt and park-like, or some other way of making that space feel urban appropriate, potentially. And so I think that if we could, they've heard a lot of our comments. They heard us struggling to also see what would be best and why, and some of the hurdles that I'll have to go through if it goes taller or does those other things. So I think that there's lots of options potentially, but I think our main point is surface parking without a structure, just as surface parking is not feeling good, is not feeling appropriate for the neighborhood. So, okay, so I think that's the last comment. Any other comments now that I've summarized those? Any other comments or adjustments to the comments?
Chair Grumbine, I would just say we're trying to provide options on that parking.
Yeah.
So it's like one idea was what you just said, maybe a building, or maybe it becomes a courtyard. So we're trying to say, look, there's a number of ways you could go with it, but we're trying to make it feel less like a surface parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have to be a building. It could be whatever you guys come up with, given what we talked about. Right?
True, but you really expect them to give up parking and put lawn in?
That's their choice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
why
just
not?
only plastic lawn.
If that's
okay.
that's up to them, and it's
Yeah.
it's
No, I
better
think
than
that's
putting
right.
in
I
a
think
new
it's
building.
on the right thing where we're saying what we're not trying to design it in, but like, sorry, verbal design is like the worst way to go, even though that's what our lawyer wants us to do. Yeah, it needs to be worked out as a designer. Every designer knows. So they've got to struggle with it and try different things, and it has to go with them. So they've kind of heard what we are finding problematic, potential ideas to study, but I think those are all fair and fine. And until we see something else, we can't react to it.
And I would also add that, looking at this elevation right here, we didn't really talk very much about the trash enclosure, other than there it is. But I would also say, back to the comment that I was making before, when you're at the public right-of-way walking by, I think that there could be something a little bit more, fun or something or other on that little building. Maybe it's even just like some kind of a cool.
But the chair said it was okay.
Well, so the
Well, we're
comment
having
that
the
was made
dis-
was,
was okay.
We're talking about it, I think.
No, well,
yeah, okay, so we can adjust it if
And we
people are
didn't- we
feeling
didn't-
like
yeah,
it needs
if-
a little more
If you
charm.
disagree, I'm just saying that maybe it's like a little vent thing, or I don't know what it is, but maybe it's even landscape. But
Yeah, and actually the landscape may
it could
may
be
change it
landscape.
too.
I
So-
just want to make that comment, because to me, this looks rather harsh right here as you're walking down the sidewalk.
Okay, so I think we can say at least in general that the design is
Yeah.
acceptable with additional detailing to follow. At least leave it at that. And then they will probably love it at that point.
And then
Okay,
we did
so-
get the gate. The gate is in there. You
Yeah,
already
and
have
that also might be a thing just to show us what was before and what was after. And so I think that part of it is not, it being a long time ago, and it might have been that we would have liked the other one more, so.
Right, and I just
Part of
want
it is
to,
we need to know what it was as well as part of that.
and I just want to be sure I do my due diligence to get the comments in now, so that we'll know what they are when we have our minutes next time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And, yeah, and I would say that the comment, maybe we'll just adjust that comment, because I think the comment would be, we want to see it with more landscaping, and the full image of this, as the front, and with, the acceptance of it being pending. So, considering that at least there's some that are not fully supportive of it right now, so, so that way we can kind of look at it in its context and see if it's good to go. Okay,
Does this
so
require a motion?
those are the comments. Any other edits before we get a motion? We're good? Okay,
I'll move for an indefinite continuance.
Second.
all right. Commissioner.
With those
Ullman.
With those comments, of course.
Is there any other reason not to do indefinite continuance? Is indefinite continuance right? Okay. All right, so we've got a motion and a second for indefinite continuance with those comments. Under discussion, any discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right.
Thank you. I wish they would stop spending so much money on these things. Calendars. What's that? Yeah, I know it.
Mr. Chair, will you adjourn the meeting?
Oh, yeah. All right, meeting is adjourned.